You know, there's a new space race happening right now, right above our heads. But this one isn't for the moon or Mars. Nope. It's for the invisible radio waves that connect us all, the very foundation of our digital lives. So let's dive into this battle to control the sky.
So, you can forget that old idea of space being this vast, empty final frontier. The new reality? It's a crowded digital superhighway in what we call low Earth orbit. Companies are launching thousands upon thousands of new satellites, literally creating these dense constellations that promise to connect every single corner of the globe. And look, when I say thousands, I mean it's a truly staggering number. The plans on the books right now from various companies, they total more than 60,000 new satellites. It's a gold rush for orbital real estate on a scale we have just never seen before. So this brings up a massive question, right? With all this new hardware blasting off, who's the air traffic controller for space? Who gets to set the rules of the road for this orbital superhighway? That's really the core conflict we're digging into today.
All right, let's dive into our first section, a crowded sky. To really get a handle on the problem, we first need to understand the sheer, kind of mind-boggling scale of the satellite boom. And this really shows you the staggering ambition we're talking about. You're looking at just a handful of the major players here. I mean, look at Starlink. That's SpaceX. They alone are planning for nearly 12,000 satellites. OneWeb's aiming for over 2,000. Every one of these represents a massive investment and a potential new global network.
And you gotta remember, these aren't just simple tin cans floating around. Each satellite is a pretty complex piece of machinery, with an antenna, a repeater, a service module, the whole shebang. And the crucial point here is, for any of this to work, they all need clear, uninterrupted signals. Okay, so how have we managed all this in the past? That brings us right to Section 2, the old rules of space. See, for decades, there's been an established international system designed to keep these signals from crashing into each other. For the longest time, the gatekeeper has been the International Telecommunication Union, or the ITU. You can kind of think of them as the cautious, careful guardians of the radio spectrum. They're a global body that has set the standards for decades, really just trying to keep space communication orderly. And their guiding principle has always been super simple: first come, first served. Basically, the first company to officially claim and actually use a slice of the radio spectrum gets priority. It's a system based on seniority, which has provided a lot of stability, but some people are now arguing it's just too slow and stifles innovation. But that old stable system, it's being seriously challenged now. And that brings us to Section 3, the FCC's radical new plan. The U.S. Federal Communications Commission is rolling out a totally different approach for American companies. In this slide just perfectly lays out the fundamental clash. On one hand, you've got the ITU's first-come, first-served model. On the other hand, the FCC is pushing for a shared spectrum approach. So instead of giving one operator priority, the FCC wants multiple operators to coordinate and share the same slice of the sky, focusing on flexibility over seniority. So what's the FCC's logic here? They're basically saying this new approach is going to turbocharge the industry. They believe it'll let new players get into the market faster, give everyone clear rules to play by, and make way more efficient use of the limited spectrum we have. It's a vision built for a fast-moving, competitive world. But, of course, a plan this radical, it's not without some huge controversy. In fact, you can really think of it as three big, high-stakes gambles the FCC is taking with the future of communication from space. Okay, but before we break down those gambles, we need to get on the same page about one key term: harmful interference. It's a technical phrase, but all it really means is when one satellite signal bleeds over and messes up another one's. Just think of it like cosmic static or a dropped call from space. All right, so here's gamble number one. The FCC is literally changing the yardstick. They're changing how we measure interference. See, the rest of the world uses a metric called interference to noise ratio, which is all about the raw signal disruption. But the FCC wants to use something called degraded throughput, which measures the actual impact on your data speeds. It's a major shift from a purely technical standard to one based on user experience. Gamble number two is, well, maybe even a bigger deal. The SEC has decided not to set an overall cap on the total amount of interference that all these new satellite systems can cause. There's no hard limit on the collective noise from all the new players. And you can bet critics are not staying quiet about this. Take satellite operator OneWeb, for example. They're basically warning that without a cap, the FCC could just end up greenlighting way more satellites than the spectrum can actually handle without causing a total mess.
So, to put it plainly, is there a limit on how much total cosmic static is allowed? The FCC's answer is a hard no. They're betting that all these different companies can just coordinate and figure it out among themselves. They argue it avoids stifling the industry with too much regulation. And that brings us to gamble number 3, the global mismatch. This is a big one. The FCC's whole sharing idea is on a direct collision course with the ITU's first-come, first-served global standard. And as these satellite networks become global services, you're going to have 2 completely different rulebooks for the same shared space. You can see how that might lead to some serious international headaches.
So, where does this all leave us? It really boils down to one massive question. Is the FCC's plan going to kickstart a new era of innovation, or is it going to create total cosmic gridlock?
And what's really wild is that the FCC itself, they know this is risky. In their own documents, they actually warn that their approach could reward inefficient system designs at the expense of more competitive new entry. I mean, that's a pretty frank admission that their hands-off approach could seriously backfire.
And look, this isn't some abstract policy debate. The stakes here are incredibly high. We're talking about the future of global internet access, the pace of innovation in space, and whether or not we can keep our orbital highways from turning into a chaotic mess.
So, what's the final verdict? Is the FCC's plan a bold leap forward that's going to unleash a wave of competition and connect the world? Or is it a reckless gamble that risks turning our orbit into a chaotic, noisy traffic jam? Right now,